The most unique set of Call of Duty campaigns came from the Black Ops series, specifically Black Ops 1 and 2. There's many reasons as to why the Black Ops series sits above the rest. This series had the most creative storytelling, especially in Black Ops 1. You have shocking plot twists in Black Ops 1, and then in Black Ops 2 there's multiple decisions to make which lead to multiple outcomes throughout the story. The devs decided to focus on another interesting era of conflict in the world, the Vietnam and Cold War eras. The games stretch out between the 60s, into the 80s, and even into the future in Black Ops 2 specifically. The story was more than just fighting in the Vietnam War. It also included CIA and Russian operative missions and themes. We got another cast of characters just as memorable as the ones from the Modern Warfare series. I really do appreciate the creators of the Black Ops storyline because it was just really enjoyable to play through this unique style and to see these creative ideas that we didn't see before in the other games. So let's wrap up this 3-part series by talking about Black Ops 1 and 2. In 2010, Activision released Black Ops 1, which in my opinion is still, to this day, the most creative campaign in the series. It takes place between 1961 and 1968 in the middle of the Vietnam and Cold War. To help players get the vibes of this time period, music from the Rolling Stones and Creedence Clearwater Revival would play, songs that did truly gain popularity back during this time. You play as Alex Mason, who is both a Marine and a CIA operative. The game starts with you sitting strapped to a chair, and you are being interrogated by CIA member James Hudson. You are just as confused as Mason, as Hudson is asking you multiple questions about numbers. The numbers, Mason. What do they mean? Missions then take place as Hudson tries to get Mason to remember the numbers and to remember everything that happened leading up to this moment. In the first mission, Alex is assigned the task of assassinating Fidel Castro in Cuba in the Bay of Pigs mission. The assassination fails and you are captured by Cuban forces, who then send you off to the Russians. Alex is sent to a gulag called Vorkuta. There you meet the man, the myth, the legend, Viktor Reznov. Reznov tells Alex the backstory of the Russian antagonists, Nikita Dragovich and Lev Kravchenko, and an ex-Nazi scientist, Frederick Steiner. There's a cool flashback mission where you play as Reznov and you're accompanied by Dmitry Petrenko from World at War. You are on a mission to look for Steiner after World War II. Dragovich is there too because he wants the Nova 6 gas that Steiner has been working on. Dragovich betrays Reznov and his men, and sadly most are killed when the gas is used on them, including Petrenko. And then back to current time, there's an uprising in the prison and Alex is able to escape, but he gets separated from Reznov. Anyways, Mason is sent to Nam to fight in some of the biggest battles from the war with another popular character in the franchise, Frank Woods. Other CIA operatives like Jason Hudson are trying to take out Dragovich and the Soviet program, which is housing and using former Nazi scientists to work on projects for the Soviet Union. So, the campaign is a combination of fighting in Vietnam conflicts and partaking in CIA operations. Then somehow Mason is reunited and fights alongside Reznov again. We learn over time that the Russians brainwashed Mason when he was captured. They wanted him to kill President Kennedy. Mason got screwed up in the head big time. He was brainwashed by the Russians, and then eventually Reznov was trying to reprogram Mason to kill Dragovich, Kravchenko, and Steiner as a way of getting his own revenge. As the story continues, Mason believes Reznov is truly out there killing and getting his revenge on targets such as Steiner. However, it's actually Mason doing the killings, and Hudson was there to witness it. Reznov actually died while attempting to escape the prison, so there's the big twist. To recap this a bit faster, Dragovich has sleeper agents all over the US and Mason was one of them. When it came time to attack the US, Dragovich would broadcast numbers which would tell the sleeper agents to release the Nova 6 gas in the areas where they were, which would then lead to the Soviet Union's invasion of the United States. Finally, Mason remembers the numbers which lead to the location of Dragovich's broadcast station, which is on a ship in the Gulf of Mexico. So Mason and Hudson lead an assault on Dragovich's ship. They eventually kill him and prevent the attack from happening. This is the most complex and creative story ever created in the franchise. Playing this for the first time was absolutely amazing. I was shocked when the truth was revealed. I was actually mad that Reznov was dead because he's so cool, but it was just a cool story, and again, these are just really good ideas. They could have made a stereotypical Vietnam game, and the devs ended up doing so much more in a very unique time period between the US and the Soviet Union. The Black Ops story got a part 2 in 2012. Black Ops 2 carried the story further down the timeline, in 2 eras technically. The story takes place between 1986 and 89, and it also fast forwards into the future in the year 2025. 2 different timelines mean 2 different campaign sections. In the Cold War section of the game, Alex Mason returns as the protagonist. We also see the backstory and the rise of the game's villain, Raul Menendez. Fast forward to the year 2025, and the main character in that section is Alex's son, David. And at this point in time, Menendez is trying to stir up yet another conflict, specifically a second Cold War. Menendez is trying to send the US and China into a conflict so he could get revenge. We also see the return of key characters such as Frank Woods and James Hudson. The 80s section starts off with retired Alex Mason being brought back into the life of the CIA to look for Woods and his team that went missing on a mission. Mason eventually rescues Woods and they discover Raul Menendez, who is an arms dealer. The CIA then decides to launch an attack on Menendez, so Hudson, Woods, and Mason are sent to Afghanistan to meet with the Chinese operative. This is taking place amongst the Soviet-Afghan War. So the battling begins and the group captures Colonel Lev Kravchenko. Remember him? Mason sure does, as he has to fight the urge to kill him as the brainwashing effects from the first game creep back in. Kravchenko is interrogated and then killed by Woods. Now, if Woods kills him, then you learn about Menendez's moles in the CIA. If Mason kills him, then you never learn. This is one of those moments where your choice affects the outcome in that situation of the story. Then the origins of Menendez's anti-American stance is revealed. His sister was severely burned in a fire thanks to an American businessman who wanted to commit insurance fraud. So then, as Raul grows up, he helps his father deal drugs until the CIA kills his father. Then a few weeks after the situation in Afghanistan, our CIA friends joined the Defense Forces of Panama in a raid on Menendez's compound. During the battle, Woods ignores the order to capture Menendez, and he tries to kill him. Woods uses a grenade in an attempt to kill Menendez, but he ends up killing his sister. And it is presumed that Raul also died. Spoiler alert, he lived, and he's pretty salty now. In December of 1989, Menendez seeks revenge during the American invasion of Panama. Menendez kidnaps David and uses Hudson, who is his mole, to lure Woods and Mason into a trap. Menendez tricks Woods into shooting Mason before severely wounding him, hence why he's paralyzed in a wheelchair later in the timeline. Menendez then kills Hudson and promises Woods that he will finish the job later. Back to the futuristic setting of the game, David is a lieutenant commander in the Joint Special Operations Command. Even after all these years, Menendez is still causing trouble. Major trouble. He is the leader of a militant group who launches cyber attacks and is stirring up a conflict that will pit the US and China into a second Cold War. So, David's story is mainly about him trying to capture Menendez and stop another war. Missions include more intense battles and big moments where you have to make decisions again, and your choices obviously affect the outcome of missions and major plot points, and ultimately, the fates of characters. At one point, Menendez is captured and brought onto the USS Barack Obama aircraft carrier. He yet again has a mole that helps him escape and can lead to the deaths of other characters depending on choices made. Menendez then uses a virus to gain control of the entire American drone fleet. Menendez uses the drone fleet to attack LA and other cities across both America and China. The game ends with a raid on a facility in Haiti where Menendez is located. He ends up getting captured, and then you get to decide his fate. Imprisonment or execution. And there's actually one more unique thing to point out about the Black Ops 2 campaign. They're side missions. They are called Strike Force missions specifically. These other missions allow for storyline branching, and the success or failure of these missions can also affect the outcome of the main story. These missions feature permadeath, so if you fail, then it stays that way. What's cool about these missions is that you get to control a number of war assets, like jets, robots, and unmanned aerial vehicles. Black Ops 2 is also the first campaign to allow you to customize your loadout before missions. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to talking about the stories and all the content in Black Ops 1 and 2, and I probably didn't even give it much justice, trying to do a quick recap here of everything. But that's what's great about both games. They feature a deep, complex story. It involves things that haven't been done before in Call of Duty, and some of these themes and ideas never came back in future games, and that's actually kind of disappointing. Some of the most recent games have a lot of flawed storytelling in them. The Black Ops games, however, don't, at least the first two. Well, that concludes my little 3-part series on the Call of Duty campaigns from the early days of the franchise. You could also find my content on podcasting platforms like Spotify. Literally just search Analyze This Podcast. You could also find me on X and TikTok, X at Analyze This _YT, and TikTok at Analyze This 54 _YT. Thanks again, and take care.